are live, and while we are live, I'm going to live tweet that we are live so people who still use Twitter can see that we are live because we are live. This week we are talking. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Loose Canon. This week we're ushering in uh, the new season, season 19. I really had to think about what season it was because I absolutely prefer my season 1, 2, 3, 4 method. It's like I know it's Witch Queen. It's season 4.
Right. But here we are, 19.
Yeah, season 19. Seasons 19 greetings. That doesn't roll off the tongue as well as I'd like it to.
Season greetings.
Season, because I'm trying to play on seasons seasons greetings. Is that what it is?
Celestial seasonings.
Seasons greetings. Yeah, it is seasons greetings, which is like the widely accepting way to say Merry Christmas. Just like all the holidays that are
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
And so I was trying to make a play on that, and it doesn't roll off the tongue as much as I like to pretend that it does.
uh,
Man, it has been a while because you had was it a birthday or anniversary?
Anniversary. Yeah, we went up
Happy,
to
happy
Oklahoma and
anniversary.
chilled in a cabin for a while.
Nice, nice. And then I
Yeah,
had I'm not sure if I had my birthday interrupted or if it was a belated Thanksgiving interrupted. It was one of the two.
yeah, yeah. I think it was the Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
And then
Which,
today I actually also have a belated birthday for myself. And then next week I have a birthday for someone else, and then the week after I have a birthday for someone else, and then the week after I believe it's Christmas. I don't get a
yeah,
fucking break.
yeah. I tell you what, man. In November, like November 1st
Hmm.
until freaking like January 1st, it is the most chaotic two
Yeah.
months a year.
And then during
Because
all that, you're
everything's going
like
on.
trying to get
Holidays.
presents.
Yeah, and during all that, I'm trying to get work done, so, like,
Yeah.
it's rough out here.
Yeah. It is indeed rough out here.
But, yeah, but the holidays are here. We're in the middle of the holidays.
Yeah. See, that
This
rolls off better. We're in the middle of the holidays.
I think
And
everybody's I think everybody's probably focused on getting the last minute gifts because I
hmm
would say that, like, as far as trends go, people, have been more diligent about buying gifts well in advance now.
hmm Yeah, I have
Used to
all
be Yeah. Used to be in, like, the early 2000s, everybody was way late and doing everything, but I
hmm
think as far as society goes, they're much better at getting gifts way ahead of time
yeah.
because of convenience. I mean, we have Amazon and
hmm
eBay and all these other things. Back in the day, you had to wait until Black Friday to get your deal, and you ran
And now
out to the
Black Friday's a
store.
scam to begin with.
Exactly, and now it's like it's just a ripoff. I thought Black Friday was, like, where the deals were gonna happen again this year. I noticed them all, and I was like, "Dude, this is not
Yeah.
no way."
I got a good deal on one present for my wife. It was like it wasn't even Black Friday. It was like 2 or 3 weeks before Black Friday, and I looked it up and I was kind of on the fence about getting it, and then I saw it was 40% off, 45% off, and I was like, well, I guess I'm getting it because that's a fucking great deal.
Right. Right, but I was looking back at prices in, August on some of
Hmm.
these items I just bought, and they're, like, kicking it back up to the MSRP to give you the 45% off, so
Hmm.
it's technically, like, 2, $3 less than what
Hmm.
you were paying back then. However, they're trying to bundle it with something else because 'cause they're enticing you. Well, if you pair it up with this thing, you get,
Yeah.
40% off of this thing too, but
Hmm.
so you're paying more for something you don't need. It's kinda
I
like, where's the value?
I saw the shadiest fucking thing, a video of the shadiest fucking thing today. It was a Target sale tag, and it said buy two get one free, and it was of a toy, and I think it was of a Frozen toy. I don't know if those are still really popular
Yeah.
today, but It was a Frozen toy and it was $35. So basically, it was saying if you spend $70 on toys, two toys, we will give you the third one. And they just pulled back the plastic, and the original label was still underneath. Those toys were $20.
Oh
So they
no.
marked it up to 35 and then said if you buy
No.
two, we'll give you one free. Three toys would be $60. They marked it up to 35, making two toys $70. So they didn't even just like
That's jacked up.
trick you into buying two. They tricked you and also took an extra 10. So
Horrible.
diabolical.
Marketing geniuses up there, huh? That's what they call them.
Yeah.
We're
Oh
all
man.
prey.
Yeah, I mean seriously though, like it's upsetting, but that's the state of
I
things right
know, I
now.
know, I know, I know. I deal with it. I go on a tangent all the time. My wife tells me, my wife is constantly shut up in the car when we're driving to whatever store we're going because I'm the grumpy old man just sitting there. All dang prices these days, just
Yep.
having a fit
Mm-hmm.
of everything. Why are we
Yeah.
taking a return back to the store and spending $5 in gas when the item we bought was only $4?
Yep.
Stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah. My wife's always like, whenever I get something on Amazon that's like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. She's like, just return it. I'm like, it's not worth the energy. I'm, I'm
And
not
they bank
going.
on that
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
I'm not fighting my way through fucking Kohl's to make an Amazon return. Like, you have to pay me to go into a Kohl's. I hate that place.
We have I don't know if you have it up there, but we have, what are they called? The UPS store
Yeah, we have
things
UPS
here.
stores.
Okay. So like we can take our Amazon
Yeah, yeah.
stores. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
those as well. UPS, Kohl's, and Whole Foods. And Whole Foods is the easiest one because they have like a whole section. Like it's like you, or at least
Nice.
for us, you walk in, you turn right, you're at the Amazon section. You just go, here you go, and they just give you. They're like, okay, it's done, and you just walk out. It's seamless. But Whole Foods is like 30 minutes away, and Kohl's is right around the corner. So you know, neither
Yeah,
option is
you're splitting hairs.
yeah. Um,
Anyway, I guess we should talk about Destiny
yeah,
now.
I guess so. It's funny that we're going from because of just how everything is so packed. We're going from a Halloween episode to what I'm like memeing as like a Christmas season's greetings
Right.
episode. um,
Xmas.
but also, you know, the new season is on Tuesday the 6th.
Yeah, it is.
Wasn't the Dark Below on the 9th?
You got me. The Dark
It's
Below on the 9th?
yeah, December 9th.
Wow.
Yes, it was. December 9th was the Dark Below. So it's funny that now our season fours of the annual structure are going to fall on the original first DLC release date timeline.
That's
The
crazy.
the second Tuesdays of December.
Huh. If they really wanted to, Bungie could have some fun with it.
I wonder if they're going to reference anything about the Dark Below.
I have a feeling and this is just speculation on my part, but I have a feeling that, we'll get into talking about it, but I have a feeling like they're going to bring out some Dark Below stuff because,
Like bring in Fang of Irute, I think it was called.
well, yeah, and then there were the things that were tied to the War Mine too. So like the War Mine and the Hive and the stuff that we saw in the Dark Below that had to do with whatever was going on, like those little story missions that we have. I
Mhm.
think we're
Mhm.
gonna, I think we're gonna get a glimpse of some of that
So
because we,
are you saying that you're kind of so just a little teaser for the actual episode. You're kind of thinking we're gonna start seeing like Oversoul Edict, Abyss Defiant, Word of Crota, Fang of Ute. Like we're probably never gonna get Crota's End back in Destiny, but they'll throw in the weapons.
I don't know, I don't know. You know what would
No.
be okay? I'm just gonna say it. So what would be awesome is if Crota's Inn was a dungeon. But
That's a very divisive topic, but yeah.
I know, but I'll leave that there, and that can be what it is. But no, as far as weapons goes, I don't know that they're necessarily going to bring those weapons. If they do make the dungeon, or if they do bring Crota's End in, they can just make those weapons a part of that with
Hmm.
all the other stuff. You can have your like tiered weapons. But that aside, I was just thinking primarily as far as like open spaces that we have available to at our disposal. So there's the Cosmodrome and the Moon.
Hmm.
They could definitely revisit those places and some of the older places. Like there's the whole Vault of the or there's a whole War Mine area on the Cosmodrome that's still. And remember, we had a lot of Taken and Hive experiences in those hallways
Yeah,
over the course of D1. And in the Moon, we had a lot of hiveness as well. But
obviously.
now that they have all of the red hive, the,
We
the
jinxed it, man.
newer. I know the hive that are on the Moon now. What is it called? The Shadow Keep, Shadow
Yeah.
Keep areas. Yeah,
Well,
those areas.
the Scarlet Keep areas.
Scarlet Keep. Thank you. Red.
Yeah.
So I
Shadow
think they
Keep
could.
was the expansion that they debuted in. They are the Hidden Swarm effectively, but it's like the Hidden Swarm kind of got extra because
Anyway,
they've always been there.
that's just my theory as far as like what's going to happen as far as the undercurrent
Yeah. Okay.
those areas. Anyway,
Well, I really want to get into those, but before we get into those, why don't we get into the lore card and then we can just like deep dive on what we're gonna think's gonna happen.
absolutely. So I did this lore card because we haven't specifically talked about this particular word. We did talk about the Phantom armor set that we got from, and but this was a particular ghost, and I thought it was relevant because we just had the cutscene where Saint and Osiris kiss, and they have tea, because it's like the darkness that helped revive Osiris, and that was tied to Mithrax, and Mithrax made this concoction out of soupy darkness, which is kind of sus, but I guess he's got some abilities that. Anyway.
Yeah, no, so that was okay. Well, I want to get into that after because obviously it's going
Yeah.
to play a part in the next season. But go
Yeah.
on, go on.
So what I thought was crazy is the whole cutscene starts off with the light provides. Now that's a like a what do you call it? That's his catchphrase.
Yeah,
Mithrax's new catchphrase is the light provides. So
yeah,
every time he says that, I feel like they're intentionally putting that in to kind of make us think about it. So this ghost was something we saw when everybody was wrestling with their nightmares, and we were having to play those missions and see all of the different characters wrestle with their own, which were basically either visions of people that they lost or loved in the past, or people they had killed or had dealings with that were unfinished, or excuse me, or had some kind of haunting factor that made them wrestle with their demons. And the first time we saw that was with Eris on the Moon and You're Insufferable, and we found that the nightmares were a part of the whole pyramid darkness experience that was hidden on the moon. And so I just think it's funny how all of this unravels to a point where we're dealing with the darkness, and Mithrax, now that he's a good guy, is telling us the light provides. And so I went into this ghost lore and just read it real quick, and I kind of remembered it. I was like, oh yeah, this is about when Mithrax was on in the helm, and he heard the crown of sorrow talking to him, and what was talking to him was actually all of the people he had killed in his previous dealing. Big bad guy, and
Eesh.
yeah, so there was all these voices of fallen, his own people, fallen that he had killed, and other
Mm-hmm.
enemies that were calling out to him. And he basically shrugs it off like, "Oh my gosh, I'm seeing and hearing things." And Crow's kind of like there, and he's like, "What's up? What's going on?" Or somebody's there, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing." Just doesn't even acknowledge it. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like going to go on and deal with it on his own. And so I thought that was kind of relevant because Mithrax is here saying the light provides, and he's dealing with his own demons, but at the same time, he's wrestling with being a good guy and having this really bad past.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, that's the synopsis. And so I thought, what does Phantasmal Shell have to do with Mithrax, and why is this quote here? Well, it's because of that lore, because of the crown of sorrow talking to him, the hive, savage lad. But what got me was uh, the Phantasmal Shell. It's named Phantasmal for a reason because it's tied to those demons that basically every character in Destiny has to wrestle with. So Mithrax is wrestling. So you look at a Phantasmal Shell, you see it. If you look at the horns around it, it's got that demon looking presence to it. And
Mm-hmm.
the ghost inside the center is atmospheric type of color changing haze. And it's really cool looking, but it's different from all the other ones because this one has more of the rainbow of light spectrum. All the other ones is just straight red. Okay, when you read Phantasmal, what does that mean? Well, Phantasmal pertains to ghosts or phantoms, and they're eerie or frightening. Something seen but not having physical reality. It's an impression of the senses, a secret apparition. So that all stems off of phantom, spirit, and ghost. Those are used to describe the vital principle or animating essence within all living things, right? You know, you think of like a soul, whatever it passes on, ethereal. Um, but phantasmal is just basically a word that catch-alls. Is that even a word? It catches everything that has to do with, the plane of existence, living and the dead, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so so it's an illusion, a specter, or a nightmare. So nightmares are what we dealt with in that whole. Phantom is a figment of the imagination. The word origin French is fantôme, to bring to light, which I thought was relevant, to make appear. So a spirit is something where, in folk belief, the vital presence or animating essence within all living things. As recently as 1628 and 1633, respectively, both William Harvey and Rene Descartes still speculated that somewhere within the body, in a special locality, there was a vital spirit. So this is still a thing that people kind of like, waffle back and forth. Is this real or is this not real? Ghosts aren't real. Yes, I believe ghosts are real. Famous people argue this all the time. Um, and so,
Okay.
whether you believe or not that there is a spirit, it is a definable thing as far as our culture goes, or anyone's culture. And so we kind of relate it to a vital force, which is what's responsible for the animation of the whole body frame. So just like an engine in a factory moves the machinery in it, your body is driven, right? So if you believe you have a soul or whatever is causing your body to move around, it's not just your brain and your locomotion. So
Okay.
the go so the ghost stemmed off of that in early history as the soul or the spirit of a dead person or an animal that is believed to be able to appear to the living. Within ghost lore, and this is a ghost shell, within ghost lore, depictions of ghosts vary widely from an invisible presence to a translucent or barely visible wispy shape to realistic lifelike form. The deliberate attempt to contact the spirit of a deceased person is known as necromancy, or in spiritism as a seance. So we
Mm-hmm.
deal with all of these different archetypes within Destiny because a lot of these things are considered, motive or motions that we deal with in game. You hear these
Mm-hmm.
things pop up constantly, like necromancy. You hear about spirits and ghosts and phantoms. Um, so all of this has roots way back into ancient Egypt, where ancient Egyptians believed the soul and the spirit exist after death, with the ability to assist or harm the living, and with the possibility of a second death. So if you think about destiny in a whole, it's very much like what the ancient Egyptians believed, where your undead warrior is having a second life and having to, wrestle with all of the things that are of the land of the dead. Um, Over a period of more than 2,500 years, Egyptians believed about the nature of the afterlife, and it evolved constantly. Many of these beliefs were recorded in hieroglyphic inscriptions, papyrus scrolls, and tomb paintings. Being an example, which is an iconic one, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Right, the Book of the Dead is very much like the centered thing as far as Egyptian folklore goes, culture goes, whatever. And from what we know in game, Osiris has a lot of his name has a lot of Egyptian connotation. There's the whole Book of the Dead, which
Mm-hmm.
comes up as far as destiny is concerned and what he's had to deal with. And so my mind instantly goes to how does this relate to destiny and what is the bigger picture? I saw one of the people at Bungie mention something stung with me, and I can't remember where I saw it, but thought it made me think a lot. And it was a quote, and it said, "People are getting this wrong. The darkness is tied to memories,
Mm-hmm.
the loss of memories, the absence of memories. Darkness is very much the nothingness of memories. If you think about it, the collapse happened, and then we didn't know where we came from, what we did, and all of a sudden we were dealing with new powers that we had, or some of us had, and a lot of us were being resurrected ghosts as far as the story arc goes. And so everything that was pre-collapse was erased. And so all we had to go off of was these archives and these historical documents. And we had to lean on cryptarchs to figure out what happened, where we came from, what was our culture before we got here. And we had to piece it together. And so we had ghost fragments, which were fragments of information that we could glean and get a big picture as to where we came from, why we are here, and what we're supposed to be fighting for. So destiny in a big encapsulated experience, it made a lot of sense when they said that quote because I thought about the darkness in a new light. And if you think
Mm-hmm.
about the witness and how, they're trying to herald the darkness, basically trying to bring on another collapse. The collapse in a totality is the absence of memories. It's the absence of information. Basically this wave of darkness which just sets everything back to zero. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that the cutscene was really relevant for right now because if Mithrax is playing with darkness material, which he got from the reliquaries or whatever you call it,
Mm-hmm.
made a tea, had Osiris sip that tea, and now Osiris wakes up suddenly with all of these new memories from being paired up with Savathun. How is that ultimately going to play going? Is that going to be the little like step one of the stairway to our new darkness ability? Or Neo Muna was found in that memory. I mean, all these little questions pop up. It's nice that they're trying to tie in the whole experience, but I think there's something greater underneath the surface that we've ignored. Like, for instance, Zivu Arath, if you look up in Ishtar Collective, Zivu Arath, for as much as her name pops up, there aren't any items technically tied to her. There aren't any
Mm-hmm.
like major stories that have anything to do with her, um, grand involvement. There are a lot of side stuff where she in this commentary, or she's in of course grimoire and all of the fragments. But as far as a game goes, if you look in the items, there's nothing definitively tied to her. So she's been this undercurrent of war that's been feeding off all of the tithing that's been happening around her.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really crazy because we've all been just thinking Savathun, Oryx, Hive, fight all these demons, all these stuff. But the bigger picture is Ziva of Wrath has been there all along, just soaking it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was a tweet from Bungie that said like the threat of Zivu or Wrath or whatever, and it was just like people were like, "What do you mean Zivu? Where the hell has she been?" And it's like she's always been there in the background. It's never been. It's not like she hasn't done anything. And I posted it on Twitter. I didn't want to go digging for something. I didn't have time to. I mean to say.
Sure.
Um, that I wasn't sure if it was real. So maybe you remember. Aren't the Hive invading Savathun's throne? Aren't they being led by Sivu? The Hive, Taken, and Scorn.
Oh yeah, from what I remember story wise, I believe that those particular hive were aligned with Zivu. Well, she grabbed Scorn, some hive, and
Well, her Hive, obviously, not the
yeah,
Lucent
not the
Hive.
Lucent hive, not the
Yeah,
Lucent hive, just
or the
her hive.
Lucent Brood, who aren't
Yeah,
necessarily Lucent Hive, but either way. Um,
right, exactly. But it
uh,
makes you wonder because if Zivu Arath can, if Zivu Arath can use definition of war
mhm,
to bring her power to herself, then all of the other hive members have been outplayed ultimately because even with deception, right? Even
mhm.
with deception, as Savathun was thought to be the ultimate power, deception can only go so far because telling the truth shuts down deception. Oryx taking, right? He was wrapped up with taken. So while that's happening, Zivu is feeding off of the war that Oryx was waging across the universe, as well as the war that Savathun was, because they're all ultimately together as a trio, a triad.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know how literal to take that type of stuff. Like, I
I
wouldn't
know.
necessarily say that Zivu is like while they were separated. I don't think Zivu was actually getting empowered by Oryx. And just like when Zivu went to Tora Bottle, and she made that like statement like you've been warring, blah blah blah. It's time you paid up. That felt more like bragging, not like actual.
Oh,
I
like
am the
yeah, like
universal
literal.
embodiment of war.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. But what makes me think about it is because and so this is what I did immediately looking it up, and I was trying to remember when Zivu and Oryx were fighting each other, and basically Oryx was killing Zivu. She's like,
Hmm.
"Okay, just keep killing me. I'm going to get stronger," And that
Yeah.
so that made me think there's something else, not necessarily like she is the totality of war. She is God, but remember they killed Akka.
Well, Oryx did.
Yeah,
Oryx.
and Akka was the secrets, right?
Yeah, the Worm of Secrets. Yep.
And so if you think about the Worm of Secrets and Akka and Zivu being basically a secret war that's been happening,
Mm.
wonder if they couldn't play off of that. I know that the worms are no more because of the raid, and the mother worm vanquish or whatever locked it.
Well, the strike specifically, the replication chamber, I think it was called.
That's right. Yeah.
That should put an end to any, and that's a huge blow to the hive, like basically saying there is now a finite number of, like, probably millions, potentially billions, finite number of hive in the universe, but there is now a finite number. They cannot create more, because when a hive is born, like a fresh hive, they then immediately have to ingest a worm larva to enter the worm pact to truly become hive. And without worms, just that should cut it short.
Exactly. So without worms, what are they? So what do
They
they
would just be
become?
like the krill. They'd be weak with a 10 year lifespan.
And so this sticks out in my mind because we had, which nobody really kind of paid attention to, but we had the whole season. Was it the season of the hunt with the Wrathborn and
Yeah, season
finding
of
out
the hunt
another?
had Wrathborn.
Yeah. So the Wrathborn and Zivu or Wrathborn finding another way to pop into our fight. And now we're using basically the same exact structure as a way to call up nightmares and defeat them, and it all being like the circular tide to the darkness.
Hmm.
Could Zivu, let's just hypothetically, because this is what in my mind I was having problems with trying to reconcile. Could Zivu have found another way to circumvent a worm? Because we know Savathun technically did by creating the Lucent Brood, having a ghost.
That'd be interesting to find out if Zivu basically found a way to be like no more worms, but still choose to fight for the darkness, for the witness, because the whole worm thing was just a trick to get them under the witness's thumb.
Yeah. And so
That would be
having that
interesting.
said, could Zivu be technically outraged at the whole bringing Gaul? I mean, not Gaul, bringing. Oh gosh, I'm so bad with names. Bringing Callus underneath the witness as the herald of the darkness, because if 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 the witness is like, okay, your fanatics for your fanaticism and your insane
Mhm.
lust for this being the one true, what was it called, the one last living being in the universe, whatever.
Hmm.
uh
The final shape.
yeah, if you want to be the final shape so bad, come over here. I'm sick of hearing about it. Let's just make you that way. Here you go. Here's some seeds. Throw them in your out, get fat, grow strength, whatever. But Zivu is in the background watching this.
Hmm.
I wouldn't put it past her to
Yeah.
get insanely outraged to.
Yeah. So the tweet in question where they posted this thing about it was the video of Osiris waking up. And so forget the contents of that video.
Sure.
Uh Bungie decided to associate Osiris waking up as important because he's going to help with the fight against Zivu. And so that's kind of a little bit odd because when you for example, when you look at, and I'll put it up on screen, when you look at the Lightfall, because obviously Osiris wakes up and he's gonna tell us secrets about Neomuna. Except Neomuna is not coming next season. It's coming the season after. It's coming in Lightfall.
Right.
And sure, maybe we're being teased about its existence, but that's the extent of it. And so here you have Osiris on the far left of these rings, and then you have what were the Quicksilver soldiers called
Oh,
from Neomuna? I forgot what they were called.
Cloud Striders.
Cloud Striders. Thank you. You have the Cloud Strider on the far right, and then next to the Cloud Strider you have the Witness, and then next to Osiris on the left side you have what is the new form of Callus. And like obviously we know all about that, the fact that Callus is coming in Lightfall. He's got this big thing. He's finally a true disciple of the darkness now. He's been built up. He's got Dark Cabal, as the press kit calls them. I imagine they have a better name than Dark Cabal, or maybe it's just fine to keep it simple, because
Yeah.
you don't need to make fanciful names for every subsection. You can just call them Dark Cabal, and just so I get it.
Dark
Um,
balls.
but so it's like Osiris is being awakened to help with the threat of Zivu. Is that to say the threat of Zivu that has always been looming over us and will continue to loom over us for some time? Or is that to say that the threat of Zivu is actually the threat that's coming immediately in season 19?
Well, if you want, okay, so playing with that idea, if you want to position the story forward, you've got to wrap up the triad of Hive
You think so?
thus
I
so
don't think
far.
so.
Well, in a way, you have to have a dealing with all three at some
Yeah, but
point.
I mean,
So
it feels so quick to be like, okay, and even if we dealt with Zivu next season, we still have Savathun to deal with. She's not actually like out of the game. She's just
because they
on
always they
hold.
always put a back door. I know they always put a back door with their ghost
Yeah. But so,
possibility.
um, wait. I actually forgot what feature one is. Okay, yeah, that's feature one. So this was pointed out by a Twitter user, OddMB. This is also from the press kit, and this image is from the press kit, but the scene is from the Witch Queen campaign. And so I say it's from them because they were kind enough to put these little symbols above the head of Saladin, Eris, and Saint 14. Obviously, the symbols being Season of the Risen, Season of Sorrow, and Season of Plunder.
Right.
Saint 14 didn't exactly lead Season of Plunder, but you see the direction in which Saint 14 is very integral to the season as like the companion to Mithrax, the guardian liaison that's basically forcing all of the last city to be like, you like them now. You
Yeah,
don't get to hate them
yeah.
anymore.
It,
You like them now.
it's funny because they're forcing you to be okay with the very fact that Saint in the Fallen,
Uh-huh.
that whole mythos at the very beginning of Destiny was Saint hates the Fallen so much he headbutted a Kel and
Hmm.
is just like on the
Several.
warpath to destroy. Yeah, right. And then Mithrax was the ultimate, killer of the
Hmm.
Fallen. It's like these two champions of both sides having to come together and reconcile different.
Yeah.
We're together now.
It's got this like this almost flavor. I can't remember the book or movie or fucking whatever the hell it was from. I read and watch so many things that things kind of get jumbled. But there was one where the main characters kind of had this horrible task in front of them. You know, they had to go to like a war against the currently corrupt leaders, but they did so with the knowledge that in doing so, to to protect innocence, in doing so, they have to kind of lose their innocence, and then they don't get to just be like, okay, we took it over, we saved all of you, now we're in charge, because they're no longer the person who should be in charge. And they were like, they went into this action of like war and etc., knowing that at the end of it that they're just gonna be like, all right, off with our heads. And then you know, all you good people who were not doing what we were doing, you guys lead, because we cannot be trusted to lead after everything that we're gonna go through to get to this point.
Interesting.
And I kind of get, not to that extent, but I kind of get that feeling between the Saint and Mithrax, where it's like we both did horrible things, but the only way to move forward is if we completely just like put that behind us and lean hard into the future.
Sure. Well, that
Um,
brings up the whole other question of, we know that there's going to be some war mindiness.
well, and so that is the point of this image, which is still up on screen. So you have your season one, your season two, your season three, and then you have your season four standing right next to Saint in Anna Bray.
Yeah.
So it feels it
Yeah.
feels very nice to like line it up like that, and then next season be a Warmind focused season. And in the TWAB, this past week, they also had an update that Seraph rounds were getting a
Yeah.
tweak. I forgot exactly what it was, but so like there's like, it's like almost being said that next season is Warmind season two, because we already had a Warmind season.
Yeah. And we had a whole
Wait,
freaking expansion was the Warmind Curse of the, or what was it, the
yeah, I was gonna say, wait, no, this is Warmind season three, because we had Warmind, and then we had Season of the Almighty, which was Warmind season two, and now we're having Warmind season three, which is fine. Like,
yeah.
give me Warmind season three. Like, I'm here
Yeah.
for it. It's just funny.
I hope it's not just all centered around. I hope it's like more of a
Yeah, like key
War
player, but
Mind's
not
here.
not the
Yeah,
only focus.
me too. And so that brings up the question that everybody wants to know: Are we going to see Warmind in? Are we going to see Rasputin as an?
As an EXO, I hope so. That would be very exciting to physically see a representation of Rasputin, that like he's there in front of you.
Yeah,
And kind of in the same way that like Saladin, um he had like a leading role in Season of the Risen, but it was a lot of Cabal too. It was a lot of Keitel,
Yeah.
it was a lot of the Scions, and Eris. Actually, no, Eris probably was the absolute lead for Season of Sorrow, but maybe Anna isn't the like hardcore lead for season 4. Maybe it is more Rasputin, but they can't show you Rasputin. That just gives it away.
Right. Well, so here's something that I was trying to think back on all the different times we had encounters with Rasputin. What was he ultimately fighting against? So I think about all the times where we had to deal with Rasputin. They were, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember there was we fought the Taken with his help. We fought the Hive because the Hive were inside his bunker
Hmm.
with his help.
Yeah, the Hive
But
kept getting in, and it was supposed to be like
but
this impenetrable thing, and it was just like, nope,
yeah,
they're fucking back.
they're just in there. And then there
Yeah.
was some like ominous lore in the at one point where like Rasputin saying, well, it wasn't directly Rasputin, something like, "What are you doing here? You're not." There was like, but I don't remember explicitly having anything with Rasputin and the Vex.
Only in the lore, from my memory, the Ishtar team they pulled in Rasputin to eventually save 227 copies.
Yeah, so that's all of we have is which was in the simulation
Yeah.
Ishtar team, and then
That's an
well,
interesting
well,
point.
and so if you go back to that very first mission where you go into that, what was it, Doctor Shin, paging
Yeah,
Doctor Shin,
that was
that
Fallen.
mission, yeah, that was Fallen, and then so, but that was on Venus, and that's where the Vex were, but the Fallen were fighting the Vex on, and in lore, the only other time I can think of that would connect the dots was Korea, which had to deal with
Hmm.
Zivu, and that was a fight. And then there was Korea, which is oh, but no explicit Rasputin versus
That's a good point. You'd think he would fight the Vex more often.
exactly.
There was another instance where it was more Vex. Actually, this is interesting. Let me find the card as well. You keep talking.
Well, I just thought it was crazy because if okay, so the Vex were tunneling in Venus. We had to go down into well that
Are you talking? Because I'm not hearing you.
yeah, I'm talking. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
that's bad.
Uh oh.
That's been happening a little bit, but now it's happening a little more consistently. We got to get that figured out. It's like every
Yeah, we
time we
do.
fix it, it ends up unfixing itself.
You know, I'm gonna blame Discord for the for most of the problems I'm having on my.
Yeah, you just cut out right there.
Oh no,
That's unfortunate. I did
unfortunate.
find the card. It was from Ghost Fragment Rasputin 2. And so just to say what I was going to say, it follows the Vex and the Cabal on Mars, and they're like at this like war of attrition, and so basically they're fighting it out, and uh, a third song, A Stealthy Regard, something high above them, not Vex nor Cabal, narrowing its great eye to measure the battle with instruments of light and gravity. Does she remember it? Does it remember her? It feels like she should. She has a sense of something old lifting long spear, testing its heft. Then, drawn light, a terrible dawn, the sky opens up to admit devastation, thrown down from orbit. Minotaurs fall burnt and broken with their fluids boiling out. Cabal guns detonate in the thunderous chains as tiny piercing fletchets fall out of the sky and find their ammunition bunkers. The battle stops, the Vex wink out. On the Cabal network, the voice of Valis Ta'arik roars, find the source, rouse the flares, and find the source. She remembers the word from Earth. The array opened. A ghost from the Cosmodrome set it loose. And she wonders who won this battle, who learned the most. The Vex baiting out this new power, or the Cabal hunting it? or the Warmind itself testing its reborn strength. So basically,
Yeah.
in our actions of D1, we opened the array system. Rasputin now has easier control to many of its weapons and functions, including what they called hefting, lifting a long spear, testing its heft. So there are warmind weapons that that we could, if we were to dive deeper into this, we're not going to, that you could
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
probably figure out what weapon this likely is, potentially at least. And so what it sounds like is the Vex picked a fight with the Cabal, trying to bait Rasputin out. So this is like he maybe Rasputin was able to then also observe that he kind of got played, and he's like,
Yeah.
I'm off. I'm not touching the Vex. Like
Yeah, it could be. I mean, that was all on Mars too, and there was a big
yeah.
presence of the whole submind of Warmind, whatever that
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. This
Ugh.
also does uh kind of show the initial instance in where the Cabal had their first action against the Warmind, which was Valis to Ark sending three of the flares, three Warmind flares to hunt Rasputin, and they actually entered a Warmind core, if I remember correctly, in the strike in
Yeah, I
the
think I
Dust
remember
Palace.
that. Yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. There were Vex in those missions.
Yeah, I mean the Vex were always kind of present. It's just never been like a direct,
Confrontation,
from
correct.
memory, a direct assault, uh,
Right.
one side or the other.
Yeah. And then, the whole Scion kind of traveling time. What were they called? The flayers
Yeah, the
traveling
flares.
through time. That whole thing. That whole mess. Boy, we got like this
Oh yeah,
tangled spider
the
web.
second grouping of flares, because the first
Ye-
grouping was from the Dust Palace, and then in
Yeah.
Season of the Dawn we had more flares. Flares are a mess. They are like next
Yeah.
tier.
And they were moving the Phobos moon and all that
Yeah,
mess.
yeah, and that's the other thing. I guess, well, that's more Cabal, but another attack against Rasputin, the Cabal of D1 held Phobos out of orbit so it could be used as a weapon to destroy Mars if they ever got to that level of need. But it feels like we almost took them out in D1. We took most of them out to the point where they couldn't easily do that, and then in D2 they were like, okay, we got our resources again. We can we can redo our old plan of destroying the solar system.
Right, which has always been kind of interesting that the Ishtar or the Venus slash Mars, um, like two opposite ends of a pole that seem to ping pong Vex back and forth
Mm-hmm.
throughout the whole Destiny experience was kind of interesting because even in the raid fighting Atheon, this looks like Mars and this Venus. There was the gate on Mars that went to Venus and vice versa.
Yeah.
All of those things. It seemed like the Vex were intentionally put in this loop that they couldn't escape from to keep them from being a massive threat on the universe. So they were caught in this loop on the circular track that they could only ride on. And what was crazy is they were also around areas that had to do with the, oh gosh, what is it called, the off-world transit system
Off
train, the
world, yeah.
basically.
Off world
Yeah,
transit, yeah.
yeah. And so it was funny because that network that was created by Clovis
Mm-hmm.
and the Exo projects, that whole train network was, like, somehow taken over by the Vex, and they were popping in and out of portals, but only in those two places.
You bringing that up just made me realize something. We don't really have Destiny 1 like had that where it was like look at these places and this like fallen civilization and look at how advanced they were, and you don't really understand how it worked. Because off-world transit, it's like, did Clovis just build trains? Like that's
Right.
fine. He could have just built a subway on Mars. But like in the mission where we go there, there's like a lot of Vex portals all around, and it's just like, okay,
Yeah,
well obviously he didn't just build them around Vex portals. The portals must have come post collapse. But
absolutely.
at the same time, the train system went straight through what would become the section of the Black Garden when it wasn't severed from time. Which,
Ah, that's
it's
right.
just like, is that just a fucking
Huh.
coincidence, or did he know something? Did he harness Vex technology to make
Well, if you
trains?
ask the Cryptarch, he'll say nothing's going.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think, and so it kind of wrestles you, right? Because you think about the Vex, you think about the Warm Clovis, and you think about um, all of those entities. They were like parallel with each other, but never
yeah,
directly conflicting.
yeah.
Like never direct conflict. It was always parallel every time, and it was like these back channels were found for the exploit. They pop in and out of existence on these portals, which are tied to locales that had to do with heavy technology, right? All this technology, because that would make sense for the Vex to be able to exploit technology because they are of technology.
Mhm.
I just thought it was crazy.
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of weird thinking about like why wasn't Rasputin brought in to handle Europa at all? Was it Clovis wanted Rasputin away? That
Well,
doesn't make
remember,
sense.
Rasputin. Well, remember Rasputin had to shut everything.
On Europa?
Well, no, like, oh, on Europa. I don't know. Maybe it was just like the secret, or maybe his mind wasn't privy to that access because of our soul system.
Yeah.
Remember, originally we learned that Rasputin fragmented, and there were only certain he could only access certain points of the soul system because
Hmm.
whatever happened in the collapse, it all shut him down to one central isolated
Yeah,
mind.
it shut him down. It shut him down to the Cosmodrome, except for the pieces of him that were like severed, and
Right, and
then
then we went
we
to the
opened it up
array.
partially.
Yep.
Yeah.
We opened up the array where we fought the hive. That
Yeah.
big satellite dish comes out, and then all of a sudden, Warmind's able to access all the other
Well, most of the other, because there were
most of
still
the other.
avenues that were cut out, and so,
Exactly.
well, either way, we should probably try to get back to the season
Yeah,
19, the importance of season 19 stuff. So it feels likely that we're gonna have to do with Rasputin, um, who I believe there was something about Rasputin knowing about Neomuna as well, but I mean,
yeah.
it could
That's
just be as simple as a fragment of him knew about Neomuna and the rest of him didn't.
that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, if they want to really like hard explain, you know, you got to have some explanation
Yeah.
for it.
I mean,
So that could be the
I
only
think so at
thing,
least.
and there could have been a protocol for that because they definitively were like, no, we have to isolate this group away from everything off the grid, right?
Yeah.
Protect them. I mean, because Siva was a massive threat, even that, and then the crashed ships that we know about.
I mean, I know people keep saying it. I really do hope Siva comes back in some fashion. I don't think it's gonna come back this year. Uh, Meaning like I don't think it's gonna come back for season 4. Maybe it'll come back for Lightfall's annual pass.
I mean, yeah, it'd be great. I don't know how they would bring.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be the easiest thing to bring back, but I would like to see it if it could fit. It's all about what can actually fit the story, and I understand that it might not be the easiest thing to find place for, but I would really like it if it could. Um, so if Anna and Rasputin are leading the next season, you had a point about Crota's end stuff. Do you think Crota and Hive will be involved?
I don't know if Crota explicitly will be involved in missions and stuff, but I think that the Hive are definitely. Obviously.
Because so when have we last fought the hive? Like actually fought the hive? We fought the Lucent Brood. It feels like there's
Right.
not been like a season where we're only fighting one threat anymore.
Exactly. So we go all the way back to the Wrathborn last time we fought. Because
Well, I
other
mean,
than that, they were all just
Wrathborn were everyone. It wasn't just Hive.
right. I know, and they were the ones that Zivu attached to,
Yeah.
which was the Scorn and the Hive. And then what? Didn't she also have a Fallen in there?
Yeah, I
Or
believe
was
she
that
did.
just because of Scorn?
No, I think there was Fallen in there as well.
So that's a scary thing because I think about Oryx and I think about his Taken. Couldn't Zivu come up with her own version
Well, that's
using the
what it kind of
Wrathborn?
felt like. Wrathborn were kind of
Yeah.
her version of Taken, which were just like maybe she's not absolutely controlling them, but she's enraged them to a state that it's kind of like it still fits her purpose, where it's just like point, and they will go and attack, and that's all she gives a shit about.
Right. Yeah. And I'm fine with if that's all they want to do with her, fine with that. I just think if they're gonna do something grandiose, we
Hmm.
gotta have some direct confrontation with
So then we have a new dungeon coming next season. A new dungeon coming to quiet anyone who thinks, oh, it's going to be Crota's End, which I don't think. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to see Crota's End. I don't think they can lead with King's Fall and then go back for Crota's End as next year's returning raid. I feel like next year's returning raid absolutely has to be Siva, which is another reason why I think Siva should return next year because those are assets being generated that you don't want to only use them in the raid. Like Taken exists right now. Taken are ambient mobs. They're around. So writing in King's Fall is kind of like, okay, well we have Taken already. Whereas writing in Wrath of the Machine, it's like, okay, well we have to rebuild splicers now because they have their own weapons. They have their own dynamics. Where like if you killed them with a critical hit, a headshot, um, their Siva swarms come out kind of just like the Lucent Hive with their fucking moths. So that's
it. That's
interesting.
true. That is true. They did kind of rip a mechanic from that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Just a little
I mean,
bit.
it's utilized differently. The moths will
Yeah.
go around and attach to new hive and give them a shield, and you have the choice of killing the moth individually. So it's like it is very different, but it just the and then it comes and attacks you, which that's fucking
Mhm.
everything. You can't really call that a ripoff.
No, and I wouldn't say that, but it is kind of like a I really love I wish that was more challenging. I really love that idea. Even in
Yeah.
Halo, we had some of these things that would go around in Prometheans.
You are really cutting in and out, and you're
Sorry.
quiet.
Sorry. I'll speak at the mic so um no, I really like that mechanic because even in Halo they had something similar where there was a there was a forerunner Promethean type of enemy that would go around and resurrect others that you
Uh huh.
killed on the battlefield. I wish that they would have leaned into that a little bit harder because it made that more challenging. Is all I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Because those lucent moths bringing back, even the ghosts bringing back the lucent guy, that was a really cool mechanic to have.
Mm-hmm.
But personally, I didn't feel like it was as challenging as it could have been.
Yeah.
I think maybe if they want to do that, if they want to take that a step further, they can make that like a harder thing to do
Yeah.
going forward. Like expand on
I
that.
mean, it would be interesting if they want to bring back like splicers and Siva. I think it would be really interesting to see them like double down on their existence. Like go further with them. Like if Siva is supposed to be this like nanite technology that can build
Yeah.
anything, like have your peg leg dregs and shit like that, and have it be where when you get a headshot on them, they explode with nanite swarms and but maybe also make it like because maybe not all enemies, but some enemies have like enrage functions where like knights will charge you, things like that.
Right.
Maybe I think it'd be interesting if they had an enrage function that was unique to splicer enemies that
Well,
like
okay,
utilized a construction through the Siva. You know, not necessarily just like constructing a wall or a shield, but like
right.
body augmentation, where it was just like, oh shit, like you take your standard captain. You know, captains oftentimes have the swords. It'd be cool if like they did not originally have swords, and then you trigger them in enrage, and then it's just like their weapon, is now a sword, like a transition in how they combat you,
That's
that
kind
they
of
can
cool.
utilize
Yeah,
because of Sifa.
yeah. And so I hate to keep doing it, but Halo has a similar thing where you would fight a Promethean and he would get enraged, and then all of a sudden his light blades would show up on his arms. He would no longer
Hmm.
be just shooting you and teleporting. He would just come forward at you with this skull that opens, have these
Yeah.
blades on his arm. So they were kind of like the champions. But
Hmm.
um, that being said, in Destiny, we haven't fought anything that is similar. We fought a lot of enemies that have similar abilities as this particular. But as far as Destiny goes, we haven't encountered an enemy that is truly as destructive as the 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 flood
I knew
in
you were going
Halo.
to say the flood.
Yeah.
You
So the
you
flood.
always come back
So
to the flood.
I know, and I have to because I see Destiny playing with all of our enemies in the similar fashion where this like even down to the taken scions that would split and make another scion. That's a thing that the flood do. Even when Siva would have a pod and it would infect another individual near that pod, and then they would become Sivified, or
Hmm.
even when the splicers would take on Siva abilities and then like they would die and then the Siva nanites would come at you. That's a flood thing. Even with the Wrathborn, which they didn't do anything about, but where they would in the lore take a branch of themselves, stick it in the ground, and it would start growing. That's a flood thing. And so I think that they could lean harder into that if they wanted to and make maybe Ziva's enemy types more like the Flood if they wanted to, or maybe the Darkness, maybe the Witness enemies will end up being where the just cloud of darkness comes over, and then all of a sudden, there are infection forms all over the battlefield. You got to deal.
I want to get a soundbite of you saying that's a flood thing. Every time something is remotely
So,
flood related, that's a flood
well,
thing.
that's a flood thing. So my hang up is Bungie created all of that crap, right?
Yeah.
They're making Destiny. They've brought so many other things from their past history into Destiny, not just Haloist stuff, but Halo is one of their greatest, creations. But there's so many things that they've brought into Destiny that were from their other games. Why not?
No, I understand. Um, so yeah, I guess
Anyway,
the point of talking about Siva that I was going to is I liked kind of what you made me think at the beginning of the show, where I don't think Crota's End can come back even as a dungeon. I don't think it should come back. If it did not come back first, I feel it's kind of weird to bring it back after everything. But I would love to see the weapons come back. Obviously, with the exception of Black Spindle, but you have Oversoul Edict, Abyss Defiant, Word of Crota, Fang of Ute, Light of the Abyss, Swordbreaker, Hunger of Crota, and Song of Ute, and also those amazing armor sets like the Unyielding Casque. The Hunter helmet was one of my absolute favorite Hunter helmets. I never took it off. It was like, this is the helmet that I want.
that was a
And
really cool helmet. Yeah, I got to
yeah,
agree with you. I
and
did
then
like all those high items. They were
mhm.
really cool. That's funny you bring that up because all of the places that are locked off and sealed in the Cosmodrome have to deal with all of those things that we dealt with before we fought Coda.
Yeah. And then not even just that, but also Crotas and shaders. Because they had some of the coolest shaders. They had Glowhoo, which
Yep.
was it was like very ugly, but people fucking loved it.
Yeah,
But
it's a neon green glow that you couldn't
yeah.
back then you didn't have glow.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And what I was actually thinking of wasn't just Glowhu, it was specifically also cryptographic, which I thought was a great shader. It was like kind of bronzes with reds mixed in. It was like a really good color combination. But the ones that people really liked were midday, pre-dawn, and everyone's absolute
Oh,
favorite,
right.
sunsetting, which was like black with like burning orange and
Those were
yellows.
Eris. Those were
Yeah, those
Eris
were Eris, but
and
they
her
came in that
urn.
generation.
Yeah,
Or
because you
not
got those
that
from
yeah.
you got those from ranking up Eris, and you would
Hmm.
get pieces of armor from her, like the thrall skin,
Yeah.
which you never used, but it was like kind of cool for that. And then you would
And
go down in the moon and have to get all pieces of. You'd have to get pieces of the hive and put them in the urn.
yeah. You had to specifically you had to melee uh regular melee, not throwing knife melee.
Yeah.
Cursed thrall, which you can't fucking do.
No, because they kill you. That was funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, you couldn't do any of that stuff because if you weren't of a certain light level, you wouldn't live.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I actually didn't do that stuff. I don't think I completed the earn quest in the
Oh man, I
original
did it all. That was a
yeah.
good one.
I
I
just got
missed
so
out because that was
frustrated.
a
I was
good
like,
one.
fuck this. I couldn't do it.
Well, all I had to do was do the raid a couple because I got there late too because I was always a casual.
Yeah.
All I had to do was a raid a couple of times and then I was strong enough.
Yeah, it was the Dark Below when I really started to get into the game. But
Yeah,
like at that point, like I didn't give a shit about the urn. I was raiding, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, that's the problem is the raid armor and stuff overshadowed all the cool stuff that Eris had that you were supposed to use to get to the raid.
yeah. And it was I mean, it was just so easy. With the leveling system back then, it was just so easy to get into the raid and not really need to be all that. You know,
Yeah,
because like the first Critizen was a great raid. It's one of my absolute favorite raids. It had a
get that free
mechanic that is
chest. Yeah,
it had a mechanic that is now in the Light Blade Strike where you had what was it called, Weight of Darkness, and you would
yep,
lose Weight of Darkness by standing at lamps, and the lamps after they were triggered they would begin a countdown timer to where they would explode and become unusable, and that is now in a strike, and it was also in um season
swamp.
of the Lost on the moon ley line. There were a couple of the lamps that you could go stand next to and they would explode after you triggered them.
That's right.
Um yeah. And so
Well, they brought a little bit of that, but it wasn't the same. They brought a little bit of that with lanterns you had to destroy to keep the lucent hive from going forward or whatever it was.
oh yeah,
Unlock
well
the door.
there you
Yeah.
go. Um and so it was a great raid. Is the point of this. There wasn't really a point to what I was saying. I was just kind of reminiscing.
Well, I mean, if they bring the raid back and just be its own little space that has nothing.
The only way I think Crota's End can come back is if it came back in the like essence of like 30th anniversary, where it's just like, here's an extra thing that has nothing to
Yeah,
do with anything. Here you
maybe.
go. It's not in the structure of raid raid dungeon, old raid dungeon. It
Yeah,
can't, I don't think it can fit in that structure. But if like even this season, even if season 19 they were just like, you know what, Courtesan, $20, do you want it, here you go, do you
right,
not want it,
right,
don't buy it. It's just something like
right.
that.
Maybe just give it as a thing for.
I mean, it would be awesome. It would be an awesome like goodwill gesture to give a new dungeon and Crota's End, but at the same time, that is a lot of work. It's not fucking easy. So I'm never gonna ask for that because that's fucking rude.
How many times did Crota teleport into the?
I've never had it happen. I never
Never.
have. No.
The
It's a
most
little bummed.
the most memorable time. This is probably one of the most memorable things about that raid. The most memorable time was when I was in the raid. We were in that room shooting all our guns to get more ammo. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
You know
Yep,
what
I
you
know, I
did.
know.
Anyway, so we're sitting in that room, and I'm sitting there talking to another guy in the fire team, and I was like, "Hey, do you remember when Proto teleported in that guy's Twitch stream? Whoever it was," and they're like, "Yeah, that was so funny." And we were sitting there waving at Crota, at the beginning, and
And
then
then
of
he
course
waves back.
yeah, and he waves back, and then all of a sudden you do, and everybody was like, "Okay, is everybody ready?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're ready." And as soon as we started the mechanic, he teleported to our room,
That's funny.
and it was like at that moment I was sure Bungie was messing with, like they overheard us in the raid or something. I
Yeah,
was like, "These guys are in
that was
here."
a fun time. There was so many like little like everyone says how like easy that raid was, but it's like you did half of that raid avoiding the intended mechanics.
Exactly.
You
Yeah, the
know?
cheese the cheese is what
Oh
killed
my
it.
god. It was like
Imagine that raid if you couldn't cheese.
I know, right? Like you had the first encounter with the lanterns. If
It was
everyone
so
actually had
hard.
to go there, if everyone had to make it to the end and things like that, it's not as simple as a hunter going in Viz and just fucking running through that raid. And
I
then
would
you
do
have
that
the
part
bridge
solo all
encounter.
the time just to get wet.
Yeah. And then you have the bridge encounter, which they made much better in the revamp with everyone swinging the swords. That was awesome. But even before that, people would climb up the tower and then you just have a warlock or whatever jump across
Yep,
and then it's
just fly
done.
across, yeah.
And then you run through really quick. That's not even an encounter. That's just like a fun little mini
Yeah.
beat. And then the only one that was at all done legitimately was Ear Ute. And that was like the strategy where you break off into two teams and then you collapse on her and it's really fast paced. But
Yeah.
then with Crota,
Pull the plug.
not even pull the plug. With Crota, you have two things that are getting done. You have the one person getting the sword, which is intended, of course, and then they hide by that like little rock next to the
Yeah.
stage, and then they jump up.
Yeah.
But
You could
instead of
stand there by
standing,
the rock and
yeah,
punch the rock on the other side and not get hit by anything, and then Crota would always be looking at you while
yeah,
other members of your fire team would go and kill him.
yeah, and then the rest of the fire team, instead of standing in an area where it's like a little tricky,
Yeah.
they just group up on the ledge outside the window, straight
Yeah.
at Crota. Nothing's hitting
Gallahorn.
them.
Boom.
Gallahorn, and then fucking sword jumps up. He starts swinging. He goes back down. You wash repeat. You don't get it in one go. You go back into the room and you climb up on the doorways. So none of the thrall and knights on the
Yeah.
floor fucking matter anymore. You're
Oh
just
my
up
god,
on the doorway.
that whole raid was riddled with cheese.
Yeah. No, people would have had a much harder time if they did it legit. They never did it legit. It's the same thing with Riven. With the Riven
Yeah.
fight. I've never done a Riven fight legit. I don't intend to. Um, really quick, one thing that is coming next season that we know of is a fucking out of nowhere Ubisoft crossover event.
Yeah. I see.
Assassin's Creed. So it's on screen right now. On the left, you see Shax and you see a wolf and you see Saint 14. This is in Assassin's Creed. They basically just took the characters and it's it's a little fucking silly. Shax has a Gallarhorn sword, which is
Yep.
badass.
Wolf, a
And
mechanical wolf.
hmm?
And there's a mechanical Galler wolf.
Oh, is that a mechanical wolf? I just thought it had
Yeah.
armor.
Or maybe it does. Maybe it just has armor.
I mean, it
It looked
is the Galar Wolf, though. It is literally the Galar Wolf. And then Saint 14, if you notice, he actually has Osiris's sword,
yeah.
Dawnblade sword, which is a really nice touch. But Destiny being fucking badass, I saw a lot of people being upset that the Hunter,
People are always upset no matter what.
that the Hunter wasn't literally just fucking Ezio. And it's just like, why would it be as lame as that? Ezio doesn't fit in the Destiny universe at all. Like, I understand that you want it, but this is better because this is a character who, like, Bungie put in effort here to make a character fit in Assassin's Creed Warlock look, an Assassin's Creed Titan look, and an Assassin's Creed Hunter look. And the Titan specifically is from Odyssey, which I think is
Okay.
a very smart choice. I think the Hunter is also very Odyssey.
The hunter is cool because it almost looks like a Trojan helmet.
Yeah, which was the Odyssey era. Um,
Gotcha.
I would have liked it more though, because now that I'm saying that out loud, they have Origins, Odyssey, and I think Ragnarok, which was their Egyptian, Roman, and Norse. I would have really enjoyed seeing each class getting one of those instead of each kind of existing within the same timeline. I understand why it's easier not to make distinct assets. Um, how do you think these are going to be handled? Because this season we have, instead of getting our arc Eververse armor, we got the epic Fortnite crossover, which, it's great armor. I love the armor, but I want my fucking arc armor. I didn't get my arc armor. And now next
Yeah.
season we're getting this goddamn Ubisoft shit. And it's just like, are we getting the arc armor ever? Is that ever gonna happen? When are we gonna go to Stasis armor? When are we gonna get our fucking strand armor? You're running out of time to give me the shit that I want. And it's like, this is cool and I'm gonna get it. But I want what I
Well,
expected as well.
and then on top of that, they're playing around with the whole like armor that pairs up with an exotic.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, but I
like now you
love
have
that.
the
That's such a
Orpheus
cool idea.
chest, and yeah,
I
I wish
want.
they would keep going with that.
They need to double down on that and make it full sets, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, I agree. I want a whole
Um,
full set of Orpheus rig.
yeah, right. Full set of goddamn everything, really.
I love the what is the Dune Marcher boots look? That thing is cool.
Well, I only know the hunter, Orpheus and Bacchus, and the Bacchus cloak is kind of meh for me. Like, I
Oh
like
right,
it,
yeah.
I guess. I don't really like cloaks with a back plate. But I would love to see Bacchus armor, like chest, arms, legs. It's so.
That'd be cool.
And also, I think this is coming in late fall. In the TWAB, we got some Arbalists. I'm gonna put these on the screen. Um, just because I think these are awesome. These are kind of like the prototypes of what Arbalest could look at. And so the first one we have on screen is the Black Armory look for Arbalest, which I think is a fantastic look for Arbalest.
So cool.
And
Yeah.
so Black Armory, we gotta get the Black Armory assets back. Black Armory had a lot of things that was really awesome to it, and they're just kind of gone now. I think, are they back? I'd feel like an idiot if they're back.
They're not.
Okay, because
You mean
sometimes,
you mean the weapons? Like the weapons
yeah,
showing up in game? No, they're not
yeah,
back. Not
okay.
not explicitly back. I mean, you can reprint whatever it was that you could one or two, but
It
they're not
it
like yeah.
I don't want to like shit on Bungie or
Don't
anything,
jinx
but
it.
it feels like such like I hate when people say missed opportunity, but it does kind of feel like a missed opportunity that we have a forge now. We can't
It's
forge those
because
forge weapons.
it's because every time you hear it, it's tied to some. It's like those sayings they use.
Yeah.
Let me open the door for talking shit. Here we go.
Yeah.
Those weapon ornaments for Arbalest were created by. That's where it was. It was created by. Oh, goodness. Oh, I wish I had it up.
Yeah,
Uh,
actually I should have kept that up because I want to give the artist name.
yeah, give me a shout out because that was awesome. She did some other really cool stuff.
And so we have the second one up now. Um Stellar State Logic because they also got
There it is.
the community focus. So
So
the
cool.
second one is up, and is it? What do you think this is inspiration from? Is it just like unique inspiration because it's got these stars on it and it's got like filigree, almost like Tex Mechanica, but I
Yeah,
can't place it.
that's what I was thinking. It was Tex Mechanica, first
But
one.
like, aren't these like dawning stars?
Oh, good question. Um, Let me zoom in on my.
At least I think it was Stellar Art Logic. I'm gonna feel bad if it's not. So let me pull up the actual from the TWAB.
Did they have names? I
Da.
don't think they had names.
The one that is on now is called Historic.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
They did have names.
um
Yeah, historic looks Tex Mechanica.
yeah, and like the name Historic doesn't exactly give dawning.
No, it sounds more Tex Mechanica like back in the pre Golden Age, back
Yeah.
when Tex Mechanica was.
And it is Stellar Art Logic. Great job on all of these. Uh I feel like they might have tried to go like they didn't want to do Tex Mechanica, but they wanted to do Tex Mechanica era, which if that was the goal, they absolutely succeeded. And the third one, and this one is probably my favorite.
Mine
This one
too. The
is
Cyberpunk.
perfect. I hope this one wins. As much as I love the Black Armory aesthetic, I hope this one wins. It's so good.
They did a
This
great
one,
job
of
on
course, is called Synthwave.
it. And then look, it's got the little stars that you associate with.
Yeah, it's got different little stars, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
They did an amazing job.
yeah, fantastic job.
Yeah, I want to see
Um,
more of this. I love it when they have
mhm.
outliers of the community come in and amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see this happen like once a year. You know, have a community artist. Like obviously they're being paid for their efforts and for their work. Have a community poll select between 3 to 5 weapons. The winner weapon gets given to an artist to design a few concepts for, and then from those concepts have a second poll, and then the winning concept actually gets designed in game. I think that's a fantastic thing, and it all works because they actually get. It's not just be like, hey, give us your ideas and maybe we'll pick one and give you a shout out. Like they're being paid by Bungie. They are a contracted artist, and it's a fantastic system, and I hope we get to see more of it in the future. And
That,
I'm very excited for next season because I think we're kind of coming at our time.
yep,
Um,
right at time.
yeah, that's why I wanted to squeeze these in because these were relevant, and the art was awesome. I love shouting out art from the community when I can. So our next show should be on the 18th of
Yep.
December. That's a week before Christmas. Just like I said, I don't get a fucking break this week.
Nope.
Unending. Um, so we're gonna be talking about the new season. Rasputin, maybe some Hive. The dungeon goes live immediately. It goes live on the 6th. So maybe we'll talk some dungeon. I'm definitely gonna try to get in to that. I'm very excited for it.
Great to
Anything to
me.
say?
No, that's it.
All right. Bye everybody.